Okay. All right, so I have 7:02. I will call the meeting to order. And we'll do roll call.
Gonzalez,
Here.
Masajek,
Here.
Monzone, no. Pelletier here. Puzo,
Here.
Swanson,
Here.
Jost.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So I'm sure you saw in your packets, there were two sets of minutes. There were minutes from July 9th that had needed to be amended, and then there were minutes from last month. So just in case there are any questions, I'm just gonna approve these one at a time. So I'll make a motion to approve the regular board meeting minutes from July 9th, 2020.
I'll second.
Oh, who said that?
Lima.
Thank you.
Okay. Any questions or further corrections on the July minutes?
Okay, seeing none. All those in favor of approving the regular board meeting minutes from July 9th, 2020, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to stop you there. All of the votes when we're doing a virtual meeting have to be by roll call
Okay,
for everything. So
sounds good.
Sorry.
So for the July 9th, 2020 meetings, Masajek,
Yes.
Pelletier, yes. Puzo,
Yes.
Swanson,
Yes.
Jost,
Yes.
Gonzalez.
Yes.
Thanks, Pam.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Pam. Yeah, makes sense, but okay, next I will make a motion to approve the regular board meeting minutes from August 13th, 2020.
I'll second.
Questions or corrections?
No, we can vote on those then. Pelletier, yes. Puzo,
Yes.
Swanson,
Yes.
Jost,
Yes.
Gonzalez, Carlotta,
Yes.
you proven? Yep. Masajek,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay. Next we have public comments, agenda items only. Don't see any public. I don't know if you got any.
I did not. I
Okay.
have no comments.
Okay. President's report. Not much. I just wanted to give a shout out to Jess. I love those little emails that, you know, when she was like 1,000 STEM kits, it feels like an accomplishment. Well, it's very like humble of her, but it's definitely an accomplishment. I mean, so cool to be able to reach so many families that way. So just giving a shout out to Jess. It's awesome. Okay, moving right along. Committee reports, we have finance first.
I'll make a motion to approve the financial reports for August 2020.
I'll second.
Should we start with the check register? Well, no, wait, go back. Cash statements. Are there any questions on that?
Carlotta, are you gonna say anything or?
I'm trying to find the check register here. I got it. The check register, any questions on that?
No?
What is I feel like I've asked this before, but the WT Cox information systems or services?
The jobber that we use for our magazine subscriptions.
Thank you. Okay.
Hmm.
I should remember that because I know I've asked about that before. I should, yeah. Okay.
Everybody okay with that? Income statement. And the income statement. Nothing.
Looks good.
I think doesn't seem like there's any questions. Pretty straightforward.
Yep.
Okay.
There isn't any, no.
Are we good to vote on the financial reports?
Yes.
Anybody have anything else? Okay. So we'll vote on that motion. Puzo?
Yes.
Swanson?
You're
Swanson?
muted. You're muted, Mick.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jost?
Yes.
Gonzalez?
Yes.
Masajek?
Yes.
Pelletier, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Facilities, well, we haven't met, but right now a lot of our facilities discussion has to do with a lot of the YS renovation, which we'll get to in a little bit. Policy has not met. Is the next one due before the October meeting, or is that the schedule kind of got a little flip-flopped a little bit?
Facilities committee meeting?
Policy.
Oh, yeah, I think we were scheduled to meet before the October meeting. I'll have to go back and look at my notes. And then I'll contact the policy committee
Sure.
about getting something set up, either virtually or in person.
Sure.
So at this point, it would just be,
I think we're meeting October 1st.
Pardon?
We're meeting October 1st.
October 1st, is that it? Okay.
Mhm.
So at this point, it'll just be review of the regular scheduled policies.
Okay.
So yeah, so that we do have a meeting scheduled for October 1st. I
Okay.
can't remember what time. I'm sure
It'd be
it's
like a vacation for you, no new policies to write or review or something like that. So, okay, great. Staff reports. Pam, do you have anything else to add or you want to share? Or?
I think so. I think that my written report is fairly comprehensive. As I said, it seemed, kind of normal-ish, which was a nice change. Obviously not quite the same, but things have calmed down a little bit and things seem a little bit more stable. So does anyone have any questions about either my written report or any of the other departmental reports?
Well, I definitely want to say congratulations to Kaylin in her new role in adult services. That's awesome. Just to have the continuity of promoting someone from within, that's kind of cool. So
Yeah, and we had some really great candidates, so she really held her own. So it's not like we said, oh, just because you're here or whatever. But I will say, from an administrator standpoint, onboarding someone who's already here to a different position was certainly easier. And Jeff's 3 new people started this week, so but that's been going pretty smoothly as well. CCS had, because they were onboarding 2 new libraries into the consortium, they had done a lot of work on putting all the training videos and stuff online. So that will really be good as we add, new staff, just normal new staff, because instead of, having to train them ourselves and stuff, we can refer them to those videos. So he's really taken advantage of that. But I think that he's got 3 really strong, great customer service people, focused people. So I think that it will be a big help for him and CERC.
That's
Pam,
great.
do you have any numbers on how many patrons, what the head count is compared to what it used to be pre-pandemic? And what it is
I
now?
think I do. Hold on one second. I just think it's big enough so I can see it. So this year, to date total is 31,877. Last year at the same time was about 133,000. So
Wow.
yeah, I mean, we were closed to the public for 4.5 months, and so that that makes a difference, especially during the summer months when we have so many people coming in for summer reading and those kind of programs and that sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, slowly but surely, hopefully, hopefully we won't go backwards in phases where we'll have to close again. I think one of the things that we figured out, what it's good to keep in mind is that, that's actual gate count, but, we are providing a lot of curbside service pickup and that kind of thing. So, I think we have to keep in mind those things as well. But definitely, gate count and even doing curbside, it's down, and we expected that, and we're not unusual in any way, shape, or form with that. All of the libraries are like that. So that's where we're at.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Huge difference.
But like I said, when you take up 4.5 months of the library actually being open, and like I said, especially through the summer months when we're typically super busy. So
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that people would be going through withdrawal, and then when the floodgates opened again, they'd be eagerly coming through to visit.
yeah, it's been slow but steady. I think it's frustrating, I know, for some of our patrons that they want to be able to come to the library and stay, and because we've got time limits on how long they can be in the building, makes it more difficult. So it's those people that used to spend all day here or that kind of thing. I mean, we're just not getting that because we're not allowing them to spend that much time in the building. So so there's a number of factors that are impacting that number. But we're, like I said, we're slow but steady, and as with everything, I mean, it's calmed down. I feel calmer about it, but my first concern is really the health and safety of the community and the staff, and if we've got to ramp things up more slowly over the next year, if we're keeping people healthy, that to me is probably the best public service we can do at this point through this. So
Yeah.
it's hard. I mean, it's very different. It's hard for all of us and stuff. So, but I mean, I think people appreciate what we're doing, I think. And, we've had good attendance at our virtual programs, and, we're trying to take advantage of the nice weather. That was nice weather up until a couple days ago, but some of the pop-up programming and that kind of thing. So
Yeah. I was actually looking at, and I think it's, and I think you're right, Pam. I think it's easy to look at those numbers of, well, how fewer library visits there are in comparison. But social media posts are up. The amount of likes, that means people following and kind of being aware of that. This is how people are staying connected. For Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all of that is up. The website visits are still very high. I mean, June and July, the highest of the year so far. So, so it's still active. It just looks different. So, so I mean, so so I've definitely been, when you look at that gate count, it's like, wow, that's like, so different. But your efforts are clear when you see that you're still reaching people. So, and people still are utilizing the library, just in different ways. So,
yeah, I mean, if you look at like the circulation and stuff like that, I mean, circa physical items is down, though I think that will start to pick up a little bit. our, the circulation of digital items is, 60% more than last year or whatever. So, it's definitely changed the way that people are using us, and we get that. And it's, like I said, it kind of flies in the face of what we've been trying to do for decades and libraries is, oh, it's a gathering space and a third, it's like the third space and a community center and those kinds of things. But, I feel like, we'll get there again. Hopefully this is kind of just a bump in the road, a pretty significant bump in the road. But, I feel positive that, we're doing the right things, both for now, and I do think, to prepare us, as things go back to whatever the new normal is. But yeah, it is, it is hard to see some of those statistics.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. Does anybody else have any other questions for? Yeah, go ahead, Lima. You're muted though.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. So Pam, you mentioned that you're providing additional documentation to Fifth Third. Is that normal, or are they being kind of very specific and asking for more than typical?
I use the term documentation, and that was probably a little more formal than even what they're asking. They're just asking some clarifying questions.
Gotcha. Okay.
A lot of what
I'm hoping that they're not going to be putting up roadblocks or.
Yeah, I've asked the banker that we work with, if there's any issue, and she doesn't see any issue. It's just, making sure they've got, they're able to check off the boxes that they need to, at their end. So I'm not anticipating any issues with that. But like I said, a lot of it is just kind of clarifying questions. Did we have a separate board? Some different things like that. So.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay. And I know that you were also, and you included that document, the changes to method of accruing vacation time for everyone. Nothing that we necessarily needed to approve, but that was just more something you wanted to keep us posted on. And
yeah, I will have to change the way that it's explained in the employee handbook, but the amount of time that people are accruing is not changing. So, the total amounts are the same. And it's just that instead of getting it annually, a lump sum, they're accruing it per pay period. So, yeah, just like I said, just more to let you guys know that had changed. And, it was a good time to do it. I'd been thinking about it for a number of years, just because our current or our previous method was a little bit, it was kind of crazy. If you read the memo, first of all, it was awarded to people before they actually earned it. And everyone had to sign a document at the beginning of the year. All that, benefit eligible people had to sign a document at the beginning of the year, stating that, that they understood that they were getting their vacation before they actually earned it. That if they left the library's employ, like if they took it and then left, like if they took all of their vacation and then left the library, they would either have to pay us back or then we have to pay people a lump sum. And, there was this this convoluted formula that we had to figure out, like how far were we into the year? So how much of that time did you actually use? How much of that time did you actually earn? And then how much did you use? And so it got a little crazy to try to figure out. And then we also had problems because our pay periods always would span the end of the year and the beginning of the year. And because vacation was awarded on January 1, we always had some problems trying to figure out what was the correct year to award some or give some, take someone's vacation time, especially because a lot of people were taking time off around the holidays. So because there was nowhere for us to go, and there still really isn't, this was a good time to do it because a lot of people had vacation time that more than they would have at this time of the year. And so, making this change did not mean that, all you get is 7 hours for this pay period or something like that. They were able to make that switch without having it impact their ability to take a chunk of time off.
there we go. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay. All right. So then nothing else, we'll move on to unfinished business with the YS renovation update. Did everyone check their email today? There was actually quite a bit from Pam about the construction company. Yeah, a lot of I think really good information in there. So so I'll let you go ahead. So I think, you know, from your email too, you felt like you are feeling confident with the direction with going with this one construction firm. So
Yeah, if you saw my email, I did send you all of the information that I have from Shales McNutt. They go by SMC. They have had a lot of experience working with libraries, as I'm sure you've seen. They've had a lot of experience working with product architecture plus design. So they, you know, they have that kind of workflow, and they both understand how the other, you know, the other group works. One of the partners, John Shales, had been out a couple times to see the space and made some adjustments to what they were wanting to do in terms of, you know, it's typical in these situations. You have like a project manager, and then you have a site superintendent, and then there might be a cost estimator, and there might be 3 or 4 other people that are involved in the process. This will be a little bit more streamlined, where it will be John Shales and then Jason Perkunas, I think was his last name. And so Jason will actually serve as kind of that project manager and a site supervisor, which they did something like that with the Forest Park renovation that they just finished up, I think in January. And I was in contact with Pilar, the director of Forest Park, and she also had a letter in their packet. But she spoke very highly about how that process worked, and their project was similarly sized to what ours will probably end up being, and so it really felt like a good fit. I liked the idea a lot of having that continuity of the person kind of at the project management phase, and then, you know, having Jason be that person that would be here every day and that I'd be meeting with every day or every other day or whatever, but he would be the one that would be overseeing everything. So we got a ton of proposals. I think I said there was, you know, 15 or 16, and, you know, narrowed it down to 3. All, you know, great construction management firms, lots of experience with libraries and lots of experience with Tiffany and Dan and the other people at Product. But I just really, I felt the most comfortable, I think, with this, and you know, their approach, and Jason and John, and I think that, you know, that we'll see some small savings too, because we're not going to have as many people involved in kind of some of those, again, the cost estimating and the project management part. So, so I feel pretty confident, and would ask the board for your official approval to move forward with SMC.
Who was the company that did it for the whole library?
For the main part of the library and the mezzanine level, it was a company called Frontier.
Right.
And if I am, you may know more than I do, Claire, but I believe that they were more of a general contractor and not a true construction management firm. So Kevin and Deborah, I think, did a lot of what a construction manager would do. I don't feel comfortable doing that. And I think, just especially now, there's too many other things to do. So Frontier, for example, didn't even, you know, send anything in, and they weren't really a true construction management firm. They're more of a contractor.
Okay. So does this construction management firm hire out contractors?
Yes. So they will be the ones that do all of the bid documents for all of the different trades. They will act, and so all of those contracts from the subcontractors will actually be with them as the construction managers. And so they're the ones that, you know, if something's not going right, if they're not getting paid, they are the ones that are going to kind of carry the big stick, if you will, and you know, handle all of that. So we won't hold those contracts. Actually SMC will hold those contracts, and we'll have a contract with SMC. And then they will tell us, you know, they'll give us all of once things start, they will give us all of the monthly bills, or show us all the monthly bills. And then the architects will go through and, release those, and then we would, write that check to SMC. Does that answer your
Then
question?
we'll do all the approving of these contractors and, if a contractor comes in and say it'll be X amount of dollars and another, they'll do that that doesn't have to be approved by the board, in other words.
How that usually works is that SMC will prepare all of the bid documents, once they go through and they get all of the plans together. So they'll prepare all of the bid documents, they'll set up the bid opening, they will go through and do their due diligence, they'll make sure that the lowest bid is correct and can do the work that is being proposed. And then they will bring a whole slew of recommendations to the board for your official approval. But they will have done all the legwork before that, but the board still does have to make that approval. But we won't have to go through that. That'll be something that they will do.
Okay.
And it's also interesting that they go with locally sourced contractors. So they make every effort to use people in the neighborhood who understand our particular needs.
Yeah. I will say too that a couple of the people, we had probably about 5 or 6 firms that wanted to walk through the space. And in talking with a couple of them, while, being aware and not appreciative, because it's not the right word, but, cognizant of the fact that, there are still people that are not working and, trying to make sure that we're not, causing more grief to people who are suffering some economic hardship at this point. But, a couple of them did mention that this was, if we could do it, and, I think that we can obviously, but that this is a really good time, that pricing for a lot of, it's a good time of the year. A lot of people are looking for work. And so they really thought that we would be able to achieve some savings because we are going to move forward with it. So I thought that was good as well.
Yeah, Lima, I like that too, that they try to do that. They try to like locally sourced contractors. I think that was, because every village has different zones. It's just being familiar with the areas and everything like that. It just really, it helps add another little layer there. So I definitely like that too.
They had worked and currently are working on the Skokie Library. Yep. So they are very familiar with the types of needs that this community wants.
Yeah.
Also, it was interesting that it's very encouraging to hear a company say, hey, we deliver on time and typically slightly under budget. So I'm like, oh yeah, I'm getting excited.
That's always good. Under budget is a good thing.
Yeah.
That's our goal. And I've shared with them, people, as they were walking through, they would ask me, what are my biggest concerns about the project? And, and I said, quite frankly, I said, the budget is always an issue. And they get that, they do a lot of work with libraries and other publicly funded, institutions and stuff. So, they understand that. But, I said my biggest concern was, given the history of this building and the history that I've had with this building, is that, I'm afraid that, they're going to start opening things up and God only knows what we're going to find, right? Because we know that, all those of us have been around for a while. It's like, it seems like, oh, let's make this change. And then it becomes this cascading, my God, now we're redoing everything. So that is a concern of mine. And so they've, we mentioned that with the 3 firms that we interviewed, talked about ways to lessen those surprises and doing some early demoing and that kind of thing. So, like I said, I feel that I think any of the firms that we interviewed certainly could have come in and done a good job for us, but I did feel very comfortable with this group, and I feel like they're going to work really well with Tiffany and Dan and us, and making sure that they understand any potential issues with the space and making sure that we address those and things like that.
Yeah. It was nice to read that recommendation from Forest Park. They very wholeheartedly recommended them. Nice to just have that, the little, that when you have the library kind of wholeheartedly recommending a construction management, I feel like anyone who's gone through construction would have been like, well, I mean, so it's, and that's something that takes the headache off a little bit, is great. I like that they're familiar with Tiffany and Dan. They've worked together before. And it seems like they'll communicate well. Even just like the heads up with like the team change, and that, Jason will be your point person and that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
That was really great to see, because honestly, when I saw Zach Swanson and he had just graduated this year, I was like, are you kidding me? I don't think so.
I did reach out to Pilar separately too. I mean, I know we saw her reference that, that was as part of their packet, but I reached out to her separately, and she, again, spoke very highly, of them, and particularly of Jason, and how easy he was to work with, and how, she never felt like, she felt like she always had the information that she needed and stuff like that. So I felt even more comfortable, after talking to her too.
So, are there any other questions for Pam? Just making sure that I have the name right here. So there's not really, I'm gonna kind of make up this motion. But I'll say, I'll make a motion to approve the construction management proposal from Shales McNutt. Does that sound good? For our youth services renovation.
I'll second it. Wait a minute.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, was that Carlotta that seconded?
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Okay, we can vote on that. Swanson? Is he muted? I
Nick,
think you said yes, right?
I think that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, go ahead.
Jost?
Yes.
Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mesa Jack?
Yes.
Pelletier, yes. Puzo?
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
All right. Great. It's nice to have that light at the end of the tunnel right now. I think we all need little bits of light like that. Okay, so new business. First is director vacation approval. I know this is more for transparency reasons. They recommended that when you have an extended vacation that you run it by the board.
Yeah. I will actually be leaving the state. I'm going to a state that I'm going to California, Southern California, so hopefully it won't be burning.
Yeah,
I
good.
do, as of right now, California, we're flying through Colorado, and Colorado and California are not on the quarantine lists. I will also be bringing my computer, and we'll be checking my email at least once a day. And then I would say if the board has any questions, probably the person to talk to would be Helga Scherer, the head of tech services. And then the department managers know that I'm leaving the state, but I'll tell all staff tomorrow during our all staff meeting. But usually the managers kind of act as a team when I'm gone, but I will be available all next week, and people can contact me if they need to.
All right. Well, I'll make a motion to approve the upcoming vacation time for Pam Leffler.
I second it.
I can say the dates. I don't think we need the dates.
Oh, sorry.
No? Okay. No, you're good. Thank you, Timur.
You're welcome.
Okay. Jost?
Yep. Yes.
Gonzalez?
Yes.
Mesa Jack?
Yes.
Pelletier, yes. Puzo?
Yes.
Swanson?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, pass.
Well, stay safe and have fun.
Thank you. I figured it was a good time to go, because I feel like it would be nice to have a little bit of a break. And, you know, I figured that with, you know, the hiring of the construction management firm that, you know, things will start happening in October and through the rest of the year. And I didn't want to, you know, take any time off during the whole renovation process. So thank you.
All right. Okay, so next we have first reading of the 2021 budget. So everyone should have received not only a draft of the 2021 budget, but there should also have been budget notes where Pam details line by line. So Pam, I'll let you take it away and highlight anything you want us
Okay.
to.
Unlike previous years, this year I didn't propose any other increases to the levy. I wanted to keep the levy flat, you know, in recognition of you know, our current economic situation. And so the levy request is flat. I did try to be very realistic about potential income as well. You know, we will see some reductions, I think, and you know, interest income, vending income, depending on what happens with things. Donations are down. You know, grants, I did include the per capita grant in here. We'll see if that happens, but you know, I keep my fingers crossed, but I've tried to be very realistic with the potential revenues. So did anyone have any questions or concerns about those? Like I said, I know, and usually what I will do is, you know, propose a few different levy requests, you know, like 1%, 2%, 3% kind of thing. And as I explained in the notes, I had intended to ask for a little bit of an increase this year, even though we did an increase last year as well, just because we knew that the renovation, we were going to try to, you know, do the renovation, but really don't feel comfortable with that, especially given that, you know, the pool referendum passed and stuff like that. So I did keep the request flat. So if there's no questions about revenues, you know, I know that no one has asked me to do this, but I did want to mention why I wouldn't ask for less during, you know, with a tax request. It can be very easy for a tax-funded institution to, once you start asking for less than the previous year, it can be very difficult to then, in subsequent years, because you can only, particularly if you're concerned about having to have a truth in taxation hearing or having the village have to have one, for example, once you start asking for less, your subsequent year requests are built on the previous year, right? So, so for example, if I had asked for less, but then next year we found that we needed more, when they look at whether or not you have to have a truth in taxation hearing, it's if it's 5% or greater than the last extension that you got. So, so you very quickly get into that situation where you're having to ask for, you know, more and more percentages to kind of get you back to where you were. So I wanted to keep it flat, and I think that for a variety of reasons, keeping it flat still allowed us to do, I think, pretty much everything that we wanted to do for next year. Any questions about that? Okay. So I'll go ahead and move into the expenses, if that's okay. You know, as I have done in previous years, I've tried to kind of explain both in the notes field on the spreadsheet, but then also in the documentation, you know, what I'm doing with all of those numbers that I'm showing you. You know, as is true in most public libraries, the biggest expenditure that we have is staff salaries. And you can see that staff salaries for next year are significantly lower than they were budgeted for this year. Our anticipated salaries are going to be lower than you know, I had budgeted as well, for a variety of, you know, people leaving, and then because of the pandemic, not filling those positions and that kind of thing. So, so we do have fewer employees, and that has been working out okay, especially, you know, filling the adult services librarian position. And now Jeff has got, you know, he feels fully, he feels like he's got the right number of staff. We will be at the end of the year, Frida Jayasinga, who is one of the full-time circulation clerks. She's been here almost 30 years, I believe. She will be retiring, and at this point, we would only be probably filling that position with a part-time person, if at all. So we'll just kind of have to see how that plays out. When Natalia left, you know, my original intent this year was to replace her, and you know, Melissa, at least at that point, this was not a position she was interested in taking. Obviously that has changed. We probably won't add another person into adult services. So we were able to achieve some savings in salaries without, you know, significantly impacting services so much. And especially like with the computer room being relocated to the main floor, you know, the computer assistant positions are not necessary anymore. So, you know, looking at the numbers, I normally try to give like a merit pool increase, as I pointed out in my notes. I felt it was really difficult to do this year because we were in just such a different situation. You know, we did have some staff, as I pointed out, that were really able to do a lot of their work from home and stepped up and, you know, did all the things virtually that we needed to do and really, you know, did such a great job with that. You know, and then other people were able to take advantage of professional development and different, you know, webinars and things. But then, you know, when we opened back up again, you know, if we talk about like circulation staff, their jobs are pretty much, you know, on the desk, and they're predicated by people being in the building or, you know, providing some level of in-person service in a way that, you know, our professional staff has a little bit more flexibility in that in terms of, you know, virtual services. But everyone, I think, really across the board really stepped up when they could and when we needed them to. And so I'm proposing to just giving everyone a 2.5% increase across the board for this year. One of the things that I had hoped to do this year as well was to bump a few people up to put them kind of more where they needed to be based on the compensation project study that we had done last year. Obviously, that's not really going to happen too much, but this increase does a nice job of getting people, you know, even closer to where they need to be. And for some people, you know, they're right on them. So I felt this was a really good way to recognize how hard all the staff has worked to provide service, you know, in these really crazy times, and but still keeping us, you know, well within our budget. Does anyone have any questions, comments about that? Okay. You know, the salary dollars then do impact things like IMRF, and the IMRF rate the IMRF rate this year is 8.45% for the employer portion, which we are required to pay. The employee portion always stays the same. It's always 4.5%. When I was, you know, one of my first drafts of this, I hadn't gotten the final numbers for next year yet, and so I was estimating, you know, upwards of 10% for IMRF. But luckily, it's lower next year than it's this year, so that's good. So even with the salary increases for those eligible employees, we won't have to. The retirement line is lower. The budgeted retirement line is lower this year or next year than it is this year, and it will be more in line with about what we'll end up spending this year. So I felt pretty good about that. And then, as I've explained, we do still have people in the Municipal Employee Retirement Fund, which is the Village of Morton Grove / Morton Grove Public Library Fund that both us and the village used up until 2005. Excuse me. So we are still paying that. And, you know, that amount that I estimate is kind of based on the previous year. And, you know, I don't really know what that number is until I get that actuarial statement, which usually is about, comes out in August. Like, for example, I just last week got the recommended contribution for 2020. So, you know, I just kind of have to make my best guesses based on, I should say, I have to make my best estimations on what that MRF amount will be, you know, based on previous years. So, so that's what I did. It probably will be a little bit less than it was this year, but I planned on it being the same amount as this year, just to make sure that we have enough. So actually, Carlotta, probably when you come in next week, you'll have to sign that $166,000 check. But, yeah, that's always a big one because we just pay it once a year, so it's a little jarring. But health insurance did go up about 3%, as I said. Excuse me. But there's fewer eligible employees. I think there's 1 or 2 fewer eligible employees for 2021 than there were this year. So, sorry, I have a little frog in my throat. So that does allow us to hold employee healthcare costs flat, even with the increase in the rate. So I don't know if I'll be able to keep that up for subsequent years, but for next year, we can still do that and still have it be less than, you know, what we budgeted for this year. And so some of the smaller fees, like the flex spending accounts fees and the long-term disability insurance, those are really small amounts, as you can see from the budget. Does anyone have any questions about this, the personnel budgets or comments? So as we get into the materials and services section, most of this I try to be really cognizant of what the department managers are asking for, and all of the things that have to do with collections and programs in this area. I have included the amounts that are listed are the amounts that were requested by the department managers. Excuse me, with you know, places where we had to have some explanation. For example, you know, books for the adult services department have stayed flat, but Courtney asked for a little bit less in used services, both because there's been a slight decrease in the cost of some of the materials that she typically orders, and with the idea that there probably will not be as much ordering next year as we're going through, at least the first part of the year as we're going through the renovation. Periodicals is less. Again, as I pointed out, there's, you know, an increasing switch from print to online, and then an increasing just number of periodicals that are discontinuing, you know, printing at all, either virtual or you know, in paper. So, so that decrease is reflected there, and the amount that is requested by Helga, she's the one that manages the magazine budget. So, Flipster is the e-magazines, which is about the same. We can, that's kind of up to us, and we rely on Mark is kind of in charge of that, and he goes through and, you know, with input from the other adult services librarians, you know, reviews and analyzes the magazines that are there and how much they're being used. And so we try to, you know, choose magazines that people are using. So this is the amount that they've requested. AV amounts, adult has again stayed the same as it was for this year. Obviously, we're probably not going to spend what was budgeted for this year, which is understandable given, well, particularly in this area, there wasn't a lot of things being produced, first of all, so there just wasn't anything to buy. That's starting to increase a little bit more now. But this budget line also reflects like Hoopla and Canopy, which are 2 of our streaming services that we pay per use. So certainly, we've seen, you know, increased use during the pandemic, but I anticipate that some of that use will remain high now that some people have discovered those services. So, so that's the same amount that it was this year. The youth services AV Again, a little bit of a decrease that Courtney asked for due to, you know, again, just not purchasing as much and, you know, some things being cheaper than they were previously. So the microforms and the digitization, we digitize the Champion and we pay for that annually. We usually do it once a year. So that's, it's usually in between $600 and $800 depending on how many issues we happen to send them. So that will be the same. Programs. We did reduce next year's programs in the adult department by $5,000. We had to put a lot of money into the programming budget this year because we were going to do the One Book, One Village, and there was some other high-priced programs that we were going to try to do that obviously we weren't able to do. We are still planning on trying to do a One Book, One Village program next year. The author that we were thinking about doing, we had contracted with her for this year, and they were very nice, and we had already paid half of it, but they were very nice about rescheduling everything till next year, next fall. And so they kept that half of our deposit, and then we'll just have to come up with that other half. So this $20,000 is the amount that Melissa had requested. And then Courtney kept the same programming budget as last year. I mean, the thing is, even as, you know, I mean, we're doing quite a few, you know, kind of staff-led programs, you know, online, but there are some things that I know that, you know, both departments have wanted to do or have looked into doing that are, you know, we would be hiring people, even if it's still a virtual environment, so. Photocopier, this is the cost of our contractual obligation. Keep in mind that this does include all of our toner and it's our paper as well. So while it is more than, say, like maybe a couple of years ago, some of that, the supplies for the copiers was not included in this budget line. So that's why it does seem like it's so much higher. And then automation. There isn't a lot left to do. OSG is we've pretty much revamped all of our automation technology, which really puts us in a great position going forward, and something that was desperately long overdue. And so I was able to bring this budget line down significantly because at this point, this will be some of our contractual things, licenses, our monthly maintenance fee with OSG, and then it does include any of the tech requests that the department managers made, like if they wanted, you know, new tablets or something like that. So, so I think that we should be well set up with that amount of money. And then one of the things that we'll be working with, with OSG that they've already been doing is, you know, we'll be put on a kind of a replacement cycle for things like, you know, the computers and that sort of thing. So instead of having to replace everything all at once, and the way that we've done in the past year and a half, we'll be able to plan for those things over a 3 to 5 year cycle. Databases are fairly stable. We analyze those all the time. Mark is in charge of those as well, and so he's really on top of that, and so he's always looking at usage and seeing if there's anything out there, particularly now as people are utilizing the website and some of our virtual or our digital resources more. But this increase is, you know, kind of keeping our database offerings the same with a potential 5% increase. So we don't know that that will happen yet, but, you know, it's always good to plan for it. And then the YS databases, for a long time, the only database we had with YS was BrainFuse. But then this year, particularly in the during the pandemic, we did add Tumblebooks and Scholastic Teachables in order to provide some of those resources to the students and the teachers in the area. So there is a slight increase in that. The staff support databases stay the same. You know, these include, I think I put a list of them. So things that we use to do cataloging of materials, Desk Tracker and Zoho, those are kind of internal statistical tools that we use, and then Orange Boy is what we're using for all of the email that we're sending out. And the library aware also we use some of that. Our OCLC fees used to come out of this. This was a couple years ago, but with this with the move to CCS, our OCLC fees are included as part of our membership fees with CCS. Web maintenance and improvements, that actually is it's lower for next year because it's a more accurate reflection of our costs, which is just kind of our hosting fee, and we have some contractual hours. There's so many hours per month or per quarter that Library Market gives us as part of that. And then CCS, the fees are a little bit less because, as I mentioned in my notes, that just this past weekend, they added Grays Lake and Palatine to the consortium. So now we're up to 28 libraries. So any questions about the materials or services? So the place where there's a bigger change, obviously, salaries, there was a somewhat big change, but then in the operations subtotal, a lot of that has stayed fairly stable. I did add a lot more to the construction in progress budget line, which we will use towards the YS renovation, and then other building improvements, depending on what, how costs come in and stuff like that. I'd rather have the money and not need it for the YS renovation, and we can use it towards other things. But like I said, I was able to still provide quite a bit of money in this budget line while still keeping the levy request flat and actually having a lower overall total budget than we did for 2020. But I'll start at the top. Building maintenance, I kind of listed out what's included in that. It's the general maintenance class, cleaning company, lawn, pest control. The parking lease for St. Martha's comes out of this budget line. It was higher this year because we were going to replace an HVAC unit. I think it was an HVAC unit, which we haven't. So, this amount will allow us to do, maybe that's not out of it. I think it will still allow us to do that if we need to, but there is, we're still talking to Midwest Mechanical about the necessity of that. And we've been doing some other things with the filters and upkeep on the HVAC, particularly throughout the pandemic, as we've tried to, address ventilation and air quality issues. So, construction and progress budget, I've already pointed out that a lot of that will be spent on the YS renovation, and then other building improvements or other service improvements is what we've used it for in the past. I'm sorry, so that concludes the replacement of HVAC unit was actually in the equipment and machinery maintenance, so that was my mistake. So that should be fine in there. We were gonna do it this year, but we didn't. The furniture acquisition budget is much lower. Any new furniture, at this point, particularly for the public spaces, most of our furniture will have mostly new furniture, both on the main level and the mezzanine level then, and at least in the AS workroom. But then most of the furniture will come out of the construction budget and the renovation budget for YS. But there may be some other things that we'll have to purchase, so I did keep some money in that. Utilities have been, have almost always, in fact, since the time I've been here, not come in as high. And so the amount budgeted for next year is a more accurate reflection of our actual costs. And then I did figure in a 5% increase with that as well. Insurance is fairly stable. And I think this year our insurance cost came in at like $36,000 or $38,000. So I think we should be good with 40. Different policies renew at different times of the year. So that's an estimation, obviously. Square credit card fees is not something that we didn't start out the year doing that, but we are switching to a Square cash register completely away from the old one that we had. So we do anticipate that there'll be some increased fees with that. So, and then library supplies and COVID supplies, who would have thought, are higher, significantly higher in some cases because of things like purchasing paper bags for curbside pickup. I mean, even if, you know, there's a miraculous vaccine, we don't anticipate that we will stop doing curbside. That was something that we had talked about doing even before the pandemic started, just as a convenience for people. And so I think that, you know, people have really liked it for a variety of reasons now. And so we'll still continue to do that. And then if, you know, if there's some chance or if there's a reason we have to go back in a phase or go back a phase, sorry, it's been a long day. Our thinking, at least right now, unless things get very bad and hopefully they don't, but let's say we had to go back to phase 3, we would probably continue to do curbside, whereas we waited a little bit longer, you know, kind of moving through phase 3. But now that we've got the experience, we know how that works, that would be something that we would continue to do. So we want to make sure that we have the supplies for that. And then obviously regular supplies, which include things like, you know, all the technical services supplies and then other circulation supplies, you know, receipt paper, Mylar covers, you know, processing for library or for books that we order. And then obviously the COVID supplies are things like face masks and gloves and hand sanitizer, which we imagine we will continue to have to have. So that is, like I said, the supplies overall are significantly higher than this year. Telephone costs are fairly stable. This is our ATI is the software of for our phone system, and then our actual handsets, and we have a contractual obligations with them, so that's included there. And then we have one. We have a couple, sorry, more than one. We have a couple of data plans for, I think, a couple of iPads. So that's included. And then an assumed an increase as well, a small increase. Postage, who knows what's going to happen with the post office? The reason that we didn't reach $8,000 this year was because we didn't mail out one issue of the newsletter. So obviously that, you know, there's almost $1,000 right there. So then next year, and there was something else, there was something else that we didn't do. So last year, I know what it was. So it was relatively high this year because the newsletter, and then also we used to mail out a lot of overdue notices. And then since we went fine-free, that has really impacted that. I kept that number a little bit higher for this year just because we weren't sure how that was gonna shake out. We weren't, you know, we didn't really know what that was going to look like completely yet. So, so the $6,000 for this year is actually what was requested by marketing and engagement, which basically they've said the only thing that's coming out of there is the newsletter issues, and then just kind of mailing our regular bills. And that really is about all we mail anymore. And then we also do factor in the 5% increase. Again, not knowing what's going to happen with rates. Printing is the same thing. This is the amount requested by Chad. Includes the newsletter costs, and then business cards and name tags also come out of the budget line. So. And then promotion and publicity is a little bit less than last year. You know, we changed the logo last year, so we did a lot of, or you know, we wanted to do a lot of things with the rebranding. So you know, that's pretty much done. So now this is going to be, you know, the things that they've requested for giveaways and that kind of thing. And then also every year we participate with surrounding libraries, giving books to area hospitals for early literacy. So that's also that amount also includes the purchase of those books. So meals, recreation, and recognition. We're not doing anything with food with staff or anything like that. I mean, obviously we don't even allow vending. They can bring in their own stuff. So I did reduce that for next year. We will see. I mean, quite frankly, spending $2,500 this year, I don't think we'll get there. I mean, I don't think we'll spend that. I think we'll be able to move that money into special reserves. But again, I want to plan for it. I do anticipate that if we do get to a time that we can start to have some of those in-person gatherings again, that we'll want to have some appreciation and recognition events for the staff, particularly because they've really stepped up, this year and then certainly into next year as well. And then continuing education and meetings. We're spending, again, one of those areas that if we spend even $8,000 in that this year, I'll be surprised. PLA there were 3 of us that went to PLA, and then I did have a number of people that were going to be going to ALA because it was supposed to be in Chicago in person. Obviously that didn't happen. ILA was supposed to be in Peoria, I think, but they're doing a virtual ILA, which will be significantly cheaper, and no one's traveling. As of right now, ALA is still scheduled to be in Chicago again next summer, and they have not said anything about making that a virtual program or not having that in person. So we'll just have to wait and see. So I did want to make sure that there was still funds enough that, if it does manage to be in person in some way, or, even if it's virtual, that, that there was enough funds there for people to attend. A lot of the professional development opportunities have been virtual. So I just lost my line. Memberships is higher. It's going to end up significantly higher this year, and I wanted to keep that higher budget line for next year because it's a more accurate reflection of how much we're spending on memberships. We did see an increase this year, especially to take advantage of, oftentimes to take advantage of different professional development opportunities. You either had to be a member of some of the organizations or you got cheaper, conference attendance. And so more of the staff did, get, say, both ALA and ILA membership, that sort of thing. So, I think it's kind of philosophically, I think it's really important to be members of our professional organizations. I think they're really beneficial and you can learn a lot. So I did want to make sure that we had enough money to continue that. Professional services are things like our payroll service fees, Volgistics, which is our volunteer software. Obviously, we don't have any volunteers coming in right now, but that may change. Hopefully, we'll get to a point where that can change again, and it's software that we use to kind of keep track of that and do the scheduling. And then consultant services. Potentially, we could pay some of the architect fees from that, but also we haven't done, the strategic plan is actually up this year. So I'll probably try to do something with the strategic plan next year to create the kind of 21 through 24. I don't know. I feel like you just do your strategic plan every year kind of thing. It's hard to know. Our current one was actually for 5 years, and I think that's a little bit long. So we'll probably just do a 2 or 3 year one starting next year. But that budget line would hopefully, cover if we had an outside consultant come in to either, guide us through the process, or at least, initially help us or something like that. Miscellaneous is just what it says. It's just miscellaneous fees that aren't covered in anywhere else, and it's usually about $1,000. We try to know where all of our monies are going and what they're going, where they're coming from and where they're going to. Vending, obviously right now the vending machine's closed. I don't know when I will open it, but I'm keeping all my fingers and toes crossed that maybe we can do something halfway through the year. So I did want to give us a little bit of money to purchase vending stock if that happens. And then again, mileage right now, obviously no one's going to meetings in person, but if we get to a point that that happens again, we want to make sure that we've got, you know, coverage for that. And then collection fees are fees that we would pay other libraries for lost books, you know, reimbursement for them. So we try to keep monies in there. So that's usually, it's usually around $500. So we'll see how that plays out. And then any questions about operations subtotal? Like I said, there is a significant increase from this year's budgeted amount.
I did have a question. So the COVID supplies, so you're anticipating by 2020 ends, I'm showing 31,000. Am I seeing that right?
Mm-hmm.
So where did that money come from for this year?
That actually came out of, right now, it was initially coming out of the supply budget, and then we made a separate budget line so that we can more accurately track it, because we are trying to get some reimbursement from the village through the CARES Act funding. Like, they've got some CARES Act money, and then any other places that could potentially reimburse us. You know, obviously we wanted a way to kind of keep track of that. So so I thought about kind of combining them, but I'm going to keep them separate just so that we can more accurately track them. But initially that money is mostly coming from supplies right now.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah. And then, yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully we won't need that after next year, but like I said, just with the kind that it's so unknown, and that if there's, you know, any more, you know, obviously I'm not going to double dip now. I've sent my list to the village, and hopefully we can get some reimbursement for the fund, you know, what I've already sent into them. But, you know, if something happens next year or whatever, where they continue to, you know, provide some reimbursement or some grant money or something like that for these kinds of things, I want to make sure that we are accurately tracking it.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
Any other questions about anything in the operations section? No. Okay. The last section, I'm sorry? No? Okay. The last section is the special fees and taxes. FICA, which we're keeping. Obviously, what was budgeted this year is a little bit less because the salary budget was a little bit less, or our expenditures are going to be less. And then obviously our salary expenditures are budgeted to be less for 2021, and so the FICA line reflects that. The audit is about $9,000 between what we pay Sikich for the actual audit, and then also what we pay the actuary, Lauterbach and Amen. I think I said last year, I don't think it's still in the budget notes this year. Last year, the village used to use Sikich as well for their auditor, and they changed. And so when they changed some of the actuarial type things that Sikich provided to the village, and they were able to then use for our audit, now we have to pay Lauterbach and Amen to do those things. So that was a little bit more than it had been in previous years. So by the end of this year, I don't know why it's so much less, but next year it'll be, it's usually about $9,000 by the time it ends. I'm gonna have to look into that estimated. The transfer out, I'm not putting anything in there for 2020, but you can see that the transfer out is in the anticipated expenditures for this year. And that's basically money that we anticipate not expending in the budget line, and that will be transferred out into the special reserve line. And that's it. As you can see, my expenditures match my my anticipated revenues, which is required before we send it off to the village. So any questions, comments, concerns? Obviously, this is the first reading. You know, I'll update some of the anticipated expenditures, or 2020 anticipated expenditures, but you know, and I'll obviously look at this, but if there's particular areas that the board wants me to focus on, you know, for the final or the second and final reading in October, now would be the time to let me know that.
I appreciate all your notes. It helps me understand it a lot better ahead of time before you read it to us like you did just now.
Yeah, sorry.
As always.
I appreciate your work on this, Pam. You know, great job. I think even if you didn't just do what you just did, your notes are very thorough to where you're explaining, you know, what the lines are for, what you're using the money for.
Yeah, sorry, I don't want it to be just like, oh, I'm reading it to you, but I think, you know.
No, and I didn't mean it like that either.
Yeah, I know.
No, but you're being thorough. I appreciate you being sensitive with the levy, keeping it flat. You know, this year I think that's wise, and I think I think that you always have that sense of responsibility if whatever money you're asking from the taxpayers that it's warranted. So, but I appreciate your sensitivity to that, especially right now. But I know that this takes some time, so I appreciate your attention to detail to it. So, so how does everyone feel? Did any questions for Pam? Does everyone feel pretty thorough? Okay. I mean, great first draft, I think.
Thank you. You know, obviously, if you haven't had a chance to look at it before now, I mean, I can address things, you know, over the next few weeks before our next meeting and stuff. But, you know, like I said, I just want to know if there was anything that jumped out to people right now.
All right. And that doesn't need to be approved because that was just the first draft. So we're
Right.
just talking about it. So, okay. So moving on, communications. I know you sent us that anonymous donation.
Yeah, I said that, yeah, just because
I love
officially,
that.
yeah.
Like, you know, more people like that need to say stuff.
Yeah.
That was nice. And also, and thank you also for sending over that Tribune article, the Tribune article that Chad was interviewed with. If you guys haven't read it yet, I hope you do. It's the My Morton Grove, the collection of World War II service members. Ella Krystowski, I don't know if I'm saying that name right. She was a Holocaust survivor who lives in Morton Grove. But it's a really great collection of stories that I know that young people will continue to reference. You know, being a witness and having that within our community, I think, is really great. So so thanks for Chad for sending that over. I did also just want to note that well, Eric's not here, but Tamara and Lima, I know you guys got some information from Pam about running the next consolidated election, if that's something you are choosing to do. So
I would just appreciate, I mean, it would be helpful to know if you're going to run again, so that the rest of the board knows and stuff, if they have to start trying to get someone else on the board. So.
Pam, sorry, I don't remember seeing that. When did you send that?
I sent it last week before. I'll resend it to you, Lima.
Could you please?
Yes.
I think on the 24th, I did get it. I just haven't had a chance to look at it. E-learning has been kicking my butt.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
So once these kids go back to school, I will definitely take a look.
Yeah, I'll resend that to you, Lima, to me, and then I'll do that before tonight. And so if you don't get it tonight or by tomorrow, let me know, because I'm going to resend it as soon as the meeting's over.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, but you know, definitely feel free to reach out to any questions. It can seem like a lot when you first download those packets and you're like, I have to do all of this, but it's it's workable. You know, it's not it's not too bad. And I think
I just want to make sure that I'm like downloading the right petition thing. I don't know if it's hard to navigate the website. So if you don't mind, if I could like just send you the petition just to make sure, like I don't want to fill out a petition and not be the right one.
Yeah.
Pam, I don't know.
Yeah, you can, I can verify that for you. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Mhm.
just wanted to be sure if there was any questions that you guys had the time to ask anything. So, all right, did I talk about anything? All right, so next public comments, non-agenda items, still no public. Anybody have anything else? Any other questions?
I like next month, can we meet in the library?
Yeah, I'm going to try to set that up. Right now it's, we're still, the Bax room is filled with furniture and there's some other things set up in there. So I'm trying to work it out so that we can remain socially distant and stuff. So I was planning to try to meet in person in October, assuming, you know, we kind of continue as is right now, like things don't get worse. But yeah, I was going to try to work that for October.
I go in there every week and
I know.
so. All right, that was my question.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Well, I have 8:23. The meeting is adjourned. Our next meeting will be October the 8th. We'll keep you posted whether that's virtual or in person. We want to make sure it can happen logistically with all the precautionary measures in place, that everybody's feeling comfortable. So until then, everybody, stay healthy, stay safe. For those of you who have kids, hang in there. It's a lot right now. What's a lot for everybody, but man, the kids in the school, ladies, it's a lot. So
Well, my grandkids are all in school every day, 5 days a week. In school.
Wow.
Yep, every day.
Do they go to Catholic school?
Yep.
Yeah, boy, okay.
Mhm.